mind, we will be updating as we do have the scores in total coming out. Thank you very much, team. Thanks for coming. We always like to have our administrative team here. Okay, we're moving on to the public portion of our meeting. We welcome the public here this evening. It's good to see you on this November 1st evening. We have 3 minutes available to each of you to speak on agenda items only at this time, agenda items only at the beginning of the meeting. We have another public portion at the end of the meeting where you can speak on any of the items, including agenda items. For right now, it would be 3 minutes for a grand total of 30 minutes. And if you are speaking on behalf of a group, please let us know that group that you are representing. So if anyone has a question on agenda items at this time, please stand up, state your name, your address for us, for the record. No one on agenda items, okay, at this time. Also, please be sure that you have signed in. If you haven't signed in, please stop before the end of the meeting and sign in, because the last meeting there were a bunch of people that forgot. We had about 10 people missing off of the list, and that's important that we have that for the record. Okay, I'll close the public portion at this time, and we will move on to approval of the minutes. Regular session and executive session, October 18th. I'll make a motion.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any questions, comments, corrections? Everybody was good on that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining. Linda's abstaining. Okay, so I'll move. Okay, very good. Communications. Kathy, please.
We've got 2 letters. One is from the Town of Dover Recreation Department, and we have a letter from the Dover Area Historical Society.
Okay, could you explain what the Town of Dover Recreation Department was writing in reference to, please?
The Town of Dover Recreation Department sent us a letter in regards to the holiday tree lighting ceremony at JFK Commons Park. I believe during the first week in December, and they would like to coordinate with the Dover High School Band and the Dover Middle School Concert Band and choral as well.
Thank you for that. And the letter from the Historical Society?
The letter from the Historical Society is announcing its 9th annual tea, the way we were, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Dover Area Historical Society.
Wow, very good. Okay, thank you very much for that. Superintendent's report, Mr. Becker, please.
Well, thank you, ma'am. The first item, we'd like to recommend the out-of-district placement and transportation for the 2016-17 school year. It's 2 students going to Prima Paso for the preschool program. So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any questions or comments? This was a change from the initial amount, or is this the total?
This is 2 additional students.
2 additional students, and these are the final amounts?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Okay, roll call then, please.
Mr. Brucia?
Yes.
Ms. Dodd?
Yes.
Ms. Rosario? Yes. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Mr. Scarnio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Bocchino?
Yes.
Mr. Hooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Shower?
Yes.
And for your edification, we'd just like to point out we had a termination of the placement at the Lakeland Andover School. The student is no longer attending. The next item, we recommend travel, field trips, and professional development as per the attached list.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any questions or comments about the list? Everything's good? Okay, roll call then, please.
Mr. Brucia?
Yes.
Ms. Dodd?
Yes.
Ms. Rosario? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Mr. Scarnio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Bocchino?
Yes.
Mr. Hooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Shower?
Yes. Thank you very much. That's it, sir.
That's it.
Thank you very much. On to personnel, Mr. Miller.
Yes, I make a motion that the board approve staff and extra services appointment for the 2016-17 school year as listed. We have items 1 through 13.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, and we have a second, and that travels over to page 4 at the top. Any questions or comments? Okay, roll call then, please.
Mr. Brucia?
Yes, but abstain from 3, 6, 8, and 12.
Ms. Dodd?
Yes.
Ms. Rosario? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Mr. Scarnio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Bocchino?
Yes.
Mr. Hooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Shower?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Curriculum and co-curricular activities, Mr. Bocchino, please.
I move that the board recommends approval of the environmental science and ELL English 1 curriculum documents.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. We did have one minor change on the ELL English 1. Yes, please do. Sorry.
Yeah, we had a recommendation after the board member review, and we really do appreciate you taking the time to review these and give us the feedback. The one last minute recommendation was in the ELL curriculum. There's one line where it discusses physical accommodations for special education for ELL students, and we're changing the term physical accommodations and substituting the word scribe. So that is included and will be in the final version.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, roll call then, please.
Mr. Brucia?
Yes.
Ms. Dodd?
Yes.
Ms. Rosario? Yes. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Mr. Scarnio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Bocchino?
Yes.
Mr. Hooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Shower?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Bocchino. On to community relations, Ms. Rosario,
Oh, we
please.
have another
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry, with my cold phone. Sorry.
I move that the board accepts the school bus emergency evacuation drill reports.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any questions or comments? Okay, roll call then, please, Kathy.
Mr. Brucia?
Yes.
Ms. Dodd?
Yes.
Ms. Rosario? Yes. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Mr. Scarnio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Bocchino?
Yes.
Mr. Hooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Shower?
Yes. And I did want to mention that when at School Board's Convention, we were at the booth for the company that we purchased our school buses from, and they had nothing but high praise for Mr. Chappelle. Years of dedication and perfect efficiency, exactly. Beyond 100%, I don't know how he does it every single year, efficiency. But he's well looked after in the state also, so we could pass that along to him, that we appreciate that, that's always good. Okay, thank you very much. Now on to community relations, Ms. Rosario.
Okay, it's minute. Next item is a motion that the board recommend the approval of the CUSA statement of assurance for the 2016-2017.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any questions or comments? We're about to read through. Okey-doke. Roll call then, please, Kathy.
Mr. Brucia?
Yes.
Ms. Dodd?
Yes.
Ms. Rosario?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Mr. Scarnio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Bocchino?
Yes.
Mr. Hooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Shower?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mrs. Rosario. On to buildings and grounds, Mrs. Mullen.
I move that the board recommends approval of the use of the Dover Public School facilities for the powder puff, practice and game, as well as the use of this actual room for the long distance learning program for the New Jersey School Board Association.
Second.
There's a motion, we have a second. Any questions or comments? Okay, we take note of the date of the powder puff game. It's the practices are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. When's the actual game date?
Thursday the 17th.
Thursday the 17th is the actual game date, so let's hope that some of the public can attend the game also. Very good. Thank you very much, Mrs. Mullen. Roll call, I guess.
Mr. Brucia?
Yes.
Ms. Dodd?
Yes.
Ms. Rosario?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Mr. Scarnio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Bocchino?
Yes.
Mr. Hooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Shower?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mrs. Mullen. On to budget and finance. Mrs. Laurie, please.
Okay, I move we approve and/or adopt the following resolutions as listed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. That's A, items 1 through 5. 5. Any questions or comments from the board members? Okay, roll call then, please.
Mr. Brucio?
Yes.
Ms. Dodd?
Yes.
Ms. Rosario? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Mr. Scarnio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Bocchino?
Yes.
Mr. Hooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Shower?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mrs. Laurie. Dover report from Lion Hill. Mr. Brucio, do you have anything this evening? Okay, no report. On to old business. Do we have any old business from board members? We did have board members who were attending the school board's convention. Yeah,
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Miller, did you want to give a review?
Yeah, we had a number of great workshops with a number of vendors and institutions. One in particular was an iSchool initiative, which talked about cultural development programs, motivational programs, and mobile integration programs. And one of the exercises that we got to participate in, which was almost an hour long, it was a bus that they had at the convention center that was set up for all different types of learning as far as collaboration and critical thinking. And the idea of what they were trying to do with this exercise was to show some different ways that students could get excited about learning and how they could use their critical thinking skills in various subjects to have fun in solving some critical issue. So bring some of this information back because there may be some application in running some special programs perhaps throughout the year, not something that you can do continuously because it's a lot of work to put this type of thought into practice. But there may be some, practicality looking at that throughout the district.
Definitely.
And we did get off the bus. The
We were
challenge
allowed off the
was
bus.
to be able to figure out how to take all the clues and come up with this code. And we were the first ones to get off the bus. So felt very good about that.
Yeah, that was good.
It was hot.
It was hot and it was getting to be lunchtime and there was no lunch.
Yeah.
So that was very good. Yeah, it was a very good convention this year. Okay, anything else for old business?
I don't know if this is old or new, but I just wanted to comment on the letter that we did get from the Dover Area Circus Society, besides the fact they had tea, was the fact that they were praising the 20 Key Club students and their advisor, Mr. Purdue, who went on Thursday to help set up. They served on Saturday afternoon.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
I know the Key Club always does a fantastic job with historical. They've taken them under their wing both
Just wanted to make sure
ways.
They got the recognition.
Thank you for that, Alan. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, our next meeting then under new business is November 15th. Following meeting December 6th. We gave the workshop report. Then we have school board meetings that are coming up. I know that we have already received our registration acknowledgement, so that's really good for the November 9th upcoming. The February, March, and April, we have not registered for yet because we have no idea what the topics are yet. So that being said, any other new business from board members? Okay, then we're back to the public again. Here we are. Again, I'll remind you that it's 3 minutes for a grand total of 30. And please stand, state your name and your address. If you are representing a group with your question, please state who that is. And whoever would like to speak first.
Well, prior to this, is there any way we can get a 1-minute warning when we're at 2 minutes?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Just so you know, sometimes I hesitate to do that because
We don't want to seem
All
like.
right.
we don't want to scare people or think like, but.
All right, can I get one?
No, I think it's a good idea.
All right, can I get one?
So as long as everyone knows,
Yeah, because I need to
you
do
know,
it.
I'm just gonna say 1 minute, so I don't want people to be surprised.
All right.
That's fine.
Okay, Mrs. Nijinsky, yes. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Barbara Nijinsky, 2 Jenkins Street, Stanhope. Retired teacher, 32 years, past vice president and grievance chair of the DEA. I am here again tonight to address a letter I received from the Board of Ed after my participation in the September 2016 board meeting. A month after the meeting, I still had heard nothing, so I emailed the president asking for a status of my request to be reimbursed $200 for private property that was discarded at North Dover. Here is part of the letter I received that I would like to read. In regards to the request for reimbursement for missing items, the Dover Board of Education does not have a manifest of items that have been in your classroom for the past 32 years. If these items are of value, they should have been removed by you or perhaps a representative much sooner than a year and a half later. A list of missing items, even receipts, unfortunately, does not offer proof that these items were in your classroom. A better option might be to seek reimbursement through your personal homeowner's insurance if this is personal property that has gone missing. Please remember I was out on medical leave for the time mentioned in the letter, and I had no ability to come and fetch my belongings. I had planned on coming back to teach and therefore did not retrieve any personal items. I was eventually told I could not physically return to work and retire in February, and I retired in February 2016. I never was emailed any correspondence that I had to claim personal belongings. As a matter of fact, in a year and a half that I was out on medical leave, no superintendent, principal, administrator, or supervisor called me or emailed me to see how I was doing or that I should pick up anything from my classroom. When I was finally able to come in May, my principal quoted me a fictitious law that no retired teacher was able to return to the building. I was given 2 small boxes of items, one of which was not mine, and then escorted out. When I was able to return to my room
Excuse me, ma'am, you've got 1 minute left.
with board permission, the items that I went to retrieve were not there. Many, my items were discarded, and the letter from the Board of Ed states that I should claim it on my home insurance. What an outrage this is. Dover has their own insurance for things like this, and perhaps Dover should claim this on their part. If you needed a proof of the items, you had the opportunity to ask my former aides and teachers in the room who were using the items for my students. It's time for Dover administrators to stand behind and support their teachers. It is common and not a secret that all teachers spend their own money on additional supplies for their students, and it has never been required to keep a manifest of these items for the board level. Unfortunately, the special education budget never allowed for all those necessary items to be purchased, which is why I supplied them myself. I would hope that as a veteran devoted teacher, I would have been treated with more respect and the common courtesy to admit that my personal items were discarded, whether purposefully or innocently. Once again, I am here asking the board to reassess the situation and to reimburse me $200 for the items. Thank you for your time. A timely response is appreciated this time.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next person, please. Yes.
Hi, Monica Palestris, 393 West Blackwell Street, Dover, New Jersey. We discussed at the last meeting putting the agenda, or at least we were putting the agenda online so that community members could have an opportunity to see what was going to be discussed at the meeting and have an understanding of what was going to be discussed. I understand that that's under advisement, but I wanted to make a few comments. The first was that both the superintendent and one of the board members, and I apologize, I think it's Mrs. Laurie, I'm sorry. We're talking about the fact that once the agenda is put out to the public, if there's something like a field trip or whatever, and it comes after the agenda is published, you can't let the children go on that field trip. Now, from a legal perspective, I do represent a number of boards of education. An addendum can always be issued to an agenda. So if you give the agenda out and something happens that needs to be fixed later on, you can always, up until the meeting, up until we walk in the door, put an addendum to the agenda and say, look, this happened after the fact. So I think that saying that, you know, our children won't be able to go on trips because we wouldn't have it on the agenda seemed to me, never mind. Anyway, I think that that's something that we really shouldn't say, because the reality is the kids aren't going to be hurt because we don't have it on the agenda. We can make an addendum to the agenda and people can have an opportunity to hear what it is that everyone is discussing at the board. Because as I said last time, getting the agenda when I walk in, I can't make a comment on anything that you're doing because I'm just looking at the agenda when I walk in. And even though I've taken a speed reading course, it doesn't give me enough to actually understand what's going on. The second has to do with the agenda, in that one of the other individuals spoke about the fact that Spanish translators may be needed. And rightfully it was stated that, look, if we're going to need a Spanish translator,
1 minute, take it.
a Spanish translator, we need to know in advance. Again, I'm going to say to you, how do we know if someone needs to attend the meeting if they don't have the agenda to tell you that they need a Spanish translator. So that's the second thing. The third thing, real quick, is the desegregation of data that has to do with how long students have been in the district, and I know all of the park stuff isn't out yet, but we will be able to get that data regarding how many students had just moved into the district that took the park test at some point in time. That's my last question. And the last thing, if I have 20 seconds more?
26 seconds.
Okay, 26 seconds more. I want to thank your business administrator for sending me use of school facilities. I spoke to her on the phone, it was wonderful. She got back to me later on this afternoon. However, I was on the website last week and I sent an email so that you could kind of have some time to consider it. And no one responded to the email, so you may want to check where it says that contact Dover, it says contact us, and you can fill out a little email thing. I didn't receive a response. Just letting you know, I'm not complaining.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else?
I guess I'll go.
Yes.
Okay, just give me a start on the deal.
Sure.
I won't start. Okay, let me start. Ready?
1 second.
Sorry, give me a second.
Oh, sure.
A phone call came in just at the moment that I.
That happens to the best of us.
Okay.
All right. I want to set the record straight on something because you hear the chatter. Dover's a small town. You hear this, that, social media, etc. I want to just make a small statement. I'm going to start with strong men don't hold grudges. So there's some type of rumor that Mr. Lane is holding a grudge from 20 years ago in 1996 when he didn't get hired, etc. I'm going to go over that so there's clarity on that so we can understand that so maybe people don't get that misconception of me. I came to the school board in 1996 as a 20-something-year-old man looking for diversity in the staff. At that point, Dover had been founded in 1713, incorporated in 1869, and there had never been an African-American male teacher in that time. When I came to the board to address those issues, I came from the perspective of being a student that had never seen an African-American male in the Dover facilities other than pushing a broom. And there's nothing wrong with that profession, but as a young man growing up, it would have been good to see someone that reflects you. In that time, when I came after, there's something that's called temporal proximity. I came to the meeting in July. The first African-American male was hired in January. So I came in July. The first African-American male was hired in January. The time frame before there was one. If you talk before slavery, 284 years since the Dover first schoolhouse to an African-American male teacher, or if you talk after slavery, 128 years. So that's how long it took. But after I came, it was 5 months later. All right, that's the first thing. Second thing I want to address. Second thing I want to address is somehow my legitimacy is questioned. Mr. Lane isn't from here. He's over there. He lives here. He lives there. He's not one of us. Let me just go over this. My birth certificate says Dover, New Jersey, and my obituary is going to have Dover, New Jersey somewhere in there. My father was a decorated World War II vet and a sergeant at the Picatinny Arsenal Police Department. The Lane family was one of the first African-American homeowners in Jersey. The Lane family has over 20 family members that attended Dover Public Schools. I alone have 5 brothers and sisters that graduated from Dover Public Schools. A member of my family, my late sister Joyce, graduated with Mr. Becker, the superintendent, in the same graduating class. A member of the Lane families played football in 6 decades, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000 and 2010s. 6 members of my family are buried in Locust Hill Cemetery in Dover. Dover football had a reunion in 2015, and we had over 400 participants in the biggest alumni event in the history of Dover. My roots go deep, very deep. I am and always will be a Dover community member, and if there's a legal reason that I cannot speak, please let me know. Otherwise, the comments on Facebook, etc. should move on, including people from this board. Lastly, the Dover football downfall has been terrible, and I wish we can do something to address.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lane, it's on the side.
Thank you.
If there's anyone else who would like to speak, now that everyone has been heard, please Yes.
My name is Diana Grace.
Give me 1 minute, I'm having a little trouble. You know what happened, I had a new update from my phone. And ever since then, I'm trying to get the stop rating before I start. I think they want me to get a new iPhone.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that's right.
Thank you. My name is Diana Grisales. I live at 94 Orem Drive. Last time I asked about attached lists, I'm wondering where they could be found because they're not attached. And I believe I received a response in regards to, it was about the trips for the children and we didn't want to expose or give information about the trips. I was just curious to see if we could hear about what trips are being approved, not necessarily location and all of that, just so we have an idea as parents of what's being approved and how it's connected to our education, obviously. I wanted to ask, again, I'm new to coming to the board meetings, and I see everyone has names. I don't see the gentleman who's taking my time, who he is, and it would be great to know kind of introductions at the beginning, who's who.
And we are remiss for doing that. Mr. John Cruder.
Wait, let me stop, I don't want to stop you.
Thank you. And so I've been to several ones, and there's been a gentleman sitting in that seat, but not knowing who he was, so that would be really appreciated. One last question is on Section Community Relations Policy. You approved a QSAC statement of assurances. I would like to know what that means, and if you could educate me a little bit about that, I would appreciate it. Last comment, kind of piggybacking on the lady here about the agendas, it would be really extremely helpful for me as a parent to know what the agenda is ahead of time for 7:30. Usually Tuesdays are football, soccer, everything, and I don't get here till like 5 minutes off, and I don't have the time. So it would be greatly appreciated if we can have access to it. And I understand about addendums, totally makes sense if you have to add later. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Stacy Dawson, Blackwell Street in Dover. I have just two things. I am very outraged with what's going on with this woman. I've been at the meetings that you've been to, and that's ridiculous. I teach preschoolers, and preschoolers have more respect than what this woman is going through, and I think that's very sad. The second thing is my kids play football here. My son, who's 24 years old, was a Dover Tiger. I have his picture, I'm looking at it, Dover Tiger. Now they're Dover Pythons. Now they're at Crescent Field, they're not at Hamilton Field. I don't know what happened, why that happened, but the town doesn't come together anymore. This team is over here, this team's over here. We all used to just support each other. We all used to just go to those games at Hamilton Field where they could announce those kids and have the sound systems and do all of that. Now they're at Crescent Field. Nobody knows what's going on. The lights are turned off. The lights aren't good anymore. The concession stand is just barely visible. And I just don't know what happened because I grew up here. I've been born and raised, my family born and raised, and it's not the same anymore. And I wish that you guys would address both issues.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else?
Yes,
Yes,
I'm going to piggyback this lady. Dover was and is.
Could you state your name
Sure.
and-
Mario Nace, 233 Charlotte Road, Hope, New Jersey, 1985 graduate.
Okay.
I'm going to speak about the football program and what has happened. I understand there was no freshman team this year. I think the downfall was when the youth program was alienated to another part of the town. From 8 years old to 18, the boys used to be together as this lady. They practiced together, they supported each other. Also, 70s, 80s, 90s, from the mayor to the faculty, to the board, to the administration, when it came to athletics, support 100%. Grudges were put to the side.
Yep.
That is gone. It is gone. And who is suffering?
The children.
The kids.
That has to change. No freshman team, within the next few years, there'll be nobody. I heard that the youth program would be able to come back to Hamilton Field for a fee, for a rental fee. That's like charging your children to play in the backyard, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Okay? Ronnie spoke of a reunion we had 2 years ago. We came back to celebrate 4 outstanding coaches. We were treated like outsiders on the field. If it wasn't for the mayor, it wouldn't have happened. If it wasn't for us pulling strings, it wouldn't have happened. There has to be change. It was harder to break down the program. It was easier to break down the program than it is going to be to fix it. But that falls starting with you guys. You are the reason I stood up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, my name is Tia Nutting from 11 Orem Drive. I was here, I can't remember, it was a couple of meetings ago, and I asked the question about the situation with pickup and drop off at East Dover. I never heard anything, so I just wanted to follow up on that. Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else, I will close this portion of the public meeting. First and foremost, let me answer the question that you had about pickup and drop-off. I understand that there was a PTA meeting to discuss traffic safety at the school. I don't know what the result of that meeting was, but I can tell you that Mr. Becker and myself are meeting with the public safety director for the town of Dover and Lieutenant Anthony Smith on Friday. And we're going to be discussing not only East Dover, but all of the schools and traffic safety, including Route 15, and several other items. So perhaps after that meeting with them, we'll have some other answers for you. Did you attend the PTA meeting? I don't know, so.
I was there, but I had to leave early.
Okay.
So I didn't get the whole meeting.
Okay, I'm sure if you speak to Ms. Claret, I'm sure she can give you some insight as to what happened at the meeting. Okay?
Thank you.
Mr. Becker, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Ms. Dawson and Mr. Metz, I'd like to invite you to the next meeting because we'll have supervisors talking about the programs, and I think we can speak in detail about some of the concerns that you have, and perhaps take the opportunity to enlighten you in terms of things that we are doing and have tried to do, in terms of what you said that there's an animus between us and the town of Dover or the mayor, not to my knowledge. We have seen changes in the football program, and at the same time, we have an exponential growth in the soccer program. And these are things that are going on throughout the communities. I'm not sure that you were briefed that we recently had another one of our youth nights, which we've had every year. We work with the town recreation, and the kids are invited to the field, they're introduced, they're brought on, much the same that as what happened when you were a student here. So that still does continue. Our 8th graders did come and we're able to honor them. For some reason, we were notified that day that the 7th grade team would not be able to make it. So there might be some elements of the conversation that I think would be very valuable to have, and our department, our supervisor of athletics will be here, and I think he can speak with more detail. I think in terms of supporting the program, just in terms of looking at the facility, now granted, it's no longer the football field, now it's the football soccer field as we try to open it up for all members of our community. We've even had some suggestions that football receive a second seat and that the soccer program be encouraged. Well, we think there's room in our house for everybody to come to the dinner table and express their interest and express their particular talents, whether it be football, soccer. The marching band is now down there instead of being delegated to the parking lot. We have the track down there. The field house has been renovated. Have you been there recently, Matt?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you see the field house, the lockers went in this week, so we're finally glad. Has it taken a long time? Absolutely. It's taken 13 years to come to fruition with this project because we had to do it one small step at a time. If you notice the 1927 field house, in homage to the history of the district, we've renovated that as a snack bar for the boosters to use because we wanted to use that for more of a harkening back to the opening of the field rather than just have that as storage, and we were able to revise and upgrade the facility that we have for the players. So I think there is quite a bit of work being done to try to elicit the program. The charges, yes, we asked for charges only for overtime for the custodian. That was the only charge that we ever requested. I think we even waived the lights and the other fees, but we need help if we have custodians going beyond their normal contracts, so that was our request. So it's true, we did ask the town to help pay for that, but they were asked to pay for the overtime for the custodians when the practice ran into overtime. We did have issues in the past in terms of some of the youth programs not paying their bills. I don't want to get into that right now. You know, at the end of the season, it was time to pay the overtime and the money was not there. It created a problem for us, you know, quite candidly. But there's been no effort to try to preclude or eliminate a relationship between the town and the schools. One example of that is we have the, every school right now is being used. It was on the last board agenda, and I don't want to speak off the cuff because I don't want to be wrong. But numerous nights per week, I think it's 4 nights per week, town recreation is used in our buildings. And that's at absolutely no fee or no cost to the recreation program. We don't charge for that. We actually have been very... Oh yeah, and for our athletic events, as you noticed, when you come, we no longer charge for people to come in. That was because what we wanted is for the public to come in. If you have a family of 3, 4, 5 people, and you have to pay $2 to $3 each for them to come and participate, that was precluding many families from being able to be part of the Dover family at the game. So at this point, we don't charge entrance fees for any activity in town. The only thing we do charge for is the school musical. Everything else is free, and I doubt there are many districts that do that. Also, Matt, if you'll notice, there are no participation charges for any student in Dover for any activity. You can get down the road to a neighboring district. It costs you $600 to join the band. We have absolutely no fees for any child. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Are we working very hard to make our facilities accessible so that all our students, regardless of the economics, can participate and thrive in our program? Yes, we do. So I think at the next meeting we'll be able to go into some detail, and I think perhaps clear up some misunderstandings that it sounds like may be there. We welcome that opportunity. I hope you can make it back, and we can go over that in detail for you.
Absolutely.
So yeah, if I could add a couple more things. That's, as everybody on this board knows, there's no bigger supporter of football, both the town recreation program and also the high school program than I am. I pushed for many years to get those improvements done to Hamilton Field. The town recreation was never told they could not use our facilities other than 1 year. And that was the year we were doing the construction on the field that we had to close it. And the recreation department got a bug when we did that because they had no place to practice. We gave them other facilities to use, which they were not happy with. And at that point in time, the mayor and the town council and the recreation department decided to construct their own football field down at Crescent Field. And that's why they play at Crescent Field. Not because we wouldn't let them here, because they decided to build their own field. And that's where they play now. So that was not the board's decision to say you can't play up here anymore. That was recreation's decision.
And since that time, we have never received one additional
request for them to come back to Hamilton Field.
The last interaction that we had, and we had several meetings with the Recreation Department and the mayor, several meetings over probably a 3-year period, at least. And the last correspondence that we had turned in a bill to them. Initially, the bill was going to be well over $23,000. We reduced it, sliced it down to $9,888. We were charging just for the security guard and for overtime for our janitors, that's it. But that was for a time period of September through the end of football season in November. Unlimited use for practices, unlimited use for the concession stand and the bathrooms that all have to be maintained and whatnot. The reason we had to provide security guards after the construction of the new stadium the way that it is, we had some recreation issues of just mischief on the field, damages. So we had asked recreation, could you provide security? And they said we don't have enough coaches to even man everything So we then had to provide security. We had to do it. So we charged just for that. That bill to this day remains unpaid and unaddressed. But we have never turned down a use of facilities application from the town of Dover for football, ever. We have never turned it down. We have also gotten last-minute requests at 6 o'clock in the morning, the Sunday before the season started on Monday, to please approve everything, me at home in my pajamas at 6 o'clock in the morning, to approve everything. So I believe, I can understand your angst, and many of us on this board have had students that played football, marching band, everything. So we're proud of our Dover Tigers also. It was crushing when they went to Dover Pythons, but I understand that's a name from decades and decades ago, so I can understand as long as it's still in the blood. But with that being said, I'm sorry, the public portion's been closed already, I'm sorry. With that being said, recreation has a field, and if you don't feel that you're being well served by that field, with concession stands or bathrooms or anything else, you need to take that up with the owner of the field, which is the town of Dover. And I understand that they're quite receptive to meeting with people. The public portion has been closed.
I understand, ma'am, but it's something
Okay,
that,
if I
about
may
what
now-
you're saying, it's gonna take only 1 second and it's regarding what you have said. That also pertains to soccer as well? Because we were told the same thing, that it was the Board of
Soccer is a
Education.
completely different issue. Soccer is a completely different issue. Now, that has been turned down, and I'll explain that. Thank you for bringing that up, although the public portion is
I
closed, so I
understand,
don't want
that's
to
why
make
I
a
had
habit
to
of
ask
that.
the question.
Soccer is a completely different issue. Soccer has been turned down, and I'll explain why. Traveling soccer has been turned down. That's the only application that was ever turned down by the Board of Education. And the reason being, the town of Dover at one point covered traveling soccer under their insurances. They also acknowledged that they were a town group. Then traveling soccer broke away. Once they broke away, they are also encouraging people from outside of town to come. Well, this is what we were told, and this was also not recent. This was at least 3 years ago, 4 years ago at least. Easily, if not more. So there was a discrepancy between the town of Dover and traveling soccer over whose wings they were under. And we were not going to get into the middle of it. We did. We were thrown in the middle of it. We had traveling soccer coming to our meetings asking why we wouldn't approve. Well, we can't approve if we don't know who you were with. And the town is not acknowledging that you are a town sport. So that's the difference in soccer. Thank you. We do approve recreation soccer when they apply. I don't know if they're still applying to use the fields in the back here for practice. I'm not sure, since they have their own fields now, downtown also. I mean, that's another thing that you have to take up with town recreation. If they are paying to insure you at their fields, paying to insure you at our fields is going to be an additional cost, because we then are an additional insured onto their town policies. So that may be a cost that they're not prepared to take at this point. But I know there's been reorganization. There's no longer a recreation commission. Now there's a recreation department. Mr. Rees is handling everything now. I encourage you to speak to him, see if there's some other accommodations that could be made now. But we just wanted to clarify that.
And it's very confusing.
It's very confusing.
Because what we were told at first was, we support the soccer. And then we said, well, okay, for the traveling team, you support it, but does that mean they're covered under the insurance? Well, no, we don't sponsor them, but we support them. So when you get into the nuances of that, it's confusing for you, but it was also confusing for us. Well, are you or are you not part of the town rec program? And then town rec says, no, they're no longer part of it, they're a separate entity. And therein was the problem. You see, it's those nuances, somehow in the conversation, I believe they get lost, and conclusions are drawn that may be based in some fact, but erroneous in conclusion. So I appreciate the chance to really talk about it, because this is something we haven't talked about in years.
Exactly.
And it's been that long since we had any conversation. But
Mr. Hoop wanted to add something.
I just quickly, because I know I was trying not to short anybody's time, so there was a question about who I am. So my name is John Hoop, I'm an attorney, and I represent the school district. So I just wanted to address that. Another thing I just wanted to address from a legal standpoint is I heard some comments about agendas and things. I just want to make sure that there isn't any misunderstanding or misconception on anyone's part, either in the board or in the public, that the board in any way is not in compliance with the law when it comes to the way it's handling its public meetings and its agenda. The way the Open Public Meetings Act works, in New Jersey, you have to look at it historically, not just New Jersey, but nationally. In the old days, public entities, whether it be school districts or boroughs, cities, used to do a lot of actions in private, and so that the public didn't have an opportunity to see what was going on. And so things would be passed, and the public wouldn't, be aware of why things were happening or how things were happening. So in response to that, many states, including New Jersey, passed various versions of what are called sunshine laws. In New Jersey, it's called the Open Public Meetings Act. And the purpose of the act is to make sure that things, that doesn't happen, that the public is aware of what's going on. You have to understand that, though we're still talking about a public meeting of the Board of Education, it's not a meeting of the public. The Board of Education is still meeting, and it's the Board of Education that's elected, and it's the Board of Education that makes the decisions with respect to the school district. But under the law, they have to do that in public, and that's what sunshine law means, because it has to be done in public. And so there's two ways that boards can notice and give the public notice of their meetings. The first way is through an annual notice, and that's what Dover does, and most school districts as well as public entities do. And I think it has to be done by law by, I think, January 10th, to list all the meetings coming up for the next year. So in this case, the notice goes out in January, and it lists all the meetings for the next year, and it has to say where the meeting's going to be and the time and date of the meeting. And so when that's done, if that's what's considered a regular meeting of the Board of Education, that's what we're typically attending here, our regular meetings of the Board of Education. And at a regular meeting of the Board of Education, just about everything has to be discussed in public, except certain items that are allowed to be discussed in executive session. So the board will have a meeting in executive session to discuss things like personnel items that can't be discussed for privacy reasons in public. But otherwise, the action and everything that the board takes has to take place out in public, which it does. There's nothing in the law that requires agendas to be presented or posted for those types of regular meetings that are scheduled in advance for the year ahead. It would be impossible to do that because obviously you're scheduling meetings for the entire year. And the idea is the public has to know when and where the meeting is going to be, and they have to have the right to be there to hear what's going on. There's an exception to that for special meetings. So if, for instance, the board calls a special meeting that's not on their regular calendar and says we're going to have a special meeting next Wednesday when the board doesn't normally meet, then in that type of situation, when you're calling a special meeting, it has to be advertised in certain ways, and then an agenda has to be posted to the extent it's known of what the items are that are going to be discussed at the meeting. But there's no requirement that agendas otherwise be presented at a specific time or in a specific manner or in a specific way. In fact, there was a case about this just very recently, just within the last year or two. I can't remember the name of the case, but it was out of Midland Park. It dealt with the Midland Park Board of Education. And people there brought a claim trying to say that the board should be attaching, somebody asked about attachments. They should be putting all the attachments on the computer and posting everything in advance. And the courts ruled, and it went to the New Jersey Supreme Court, actually denied certification. So the appellate division ruled, the intermediate court ruling stands, which is that that's not required. It's not required under the law. So I just wanted to be clear so that everyone understands that the way that the Board of Education is operated is perfectly legal. And the board does make the agendas available before the meeting so that people can look at them. It's up to the board and the administration to determine when and how they want to go about doing that. But I just didn't want there to be any misunderstanding that there was any kind of legal requirement that it be done in a different way.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Other schools
Can I just
have it.
respond?
Yes, Mr. Becker.
Every school has it.
Yeah, excuse me, Mr. Becker.
Hi. I just wanted to respond to the one other question. I'm going through the notes here, trying to be as comprehensive as we can. The extra services report, we heard what you were saying. It was requested at the last meeting that the extra services reports be published. We've never done that in our past. The extra service report is the amount of extra services or overtime or extra pay or whatever else that every employee receives. But hearing that there is an interest in that, Kathy and I are working on how we can format this so that we will have an extra services report, and once it's approved at the meeting, then we'll attach it to the agenda, the minutes, I'm sorry, not the agenda, whoops, almost committed heresy there. We will attach it to the minutes, and that's the approved agenda, with the votes and everything, and then we'll publish that online. So we heard what you were saying, and we're gonna go ahead and publish so you get a running list of salaries, how much people are being paid extra, and then the total for the year. So you've asked for that, and we're doing our best to provide it. I did think that was important because that's a very significant amount of work to reformat it. So I thought you would like to hear that we heard what you were saying, and we're trying to accommodate that.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else, any other board members?
Someone
Okay.
asked about CUSAC, what it was. Maybe you can explain it, please.
Absolutely.
Compliance report.
CUSAC is the instrument that the state uses to evaluate all school districts. And there's several components to it, but basically what it does is it looks at everything from instruction, design, curriculum, business, financials, organization, policies. Every element of what we do and how we do it is identified through CUSAC. And we were informed on Friday that we're going to have a CUSAC monitoring for this year. And usually there's like a year notice, we have a couple weeks notice, but that's okay because last year they came in and we had no notice. There was an error made by the county. We did not receive the notice at all, and you know, that's perfectly fine because what we're doing correctly now. You know, back in the day, everybody would panic and you'd go through trying to arrange everything for CUSAC to make sure you had everything. Well, we've learned after 14 years of doing this that the important thing is just keep things up to date and keep things moving and be accurate when you do them. So we do have that meeting coming up, but that's where the state actually does an assessment of the school district in terms of they'll go around, they visit classrooms, they watch teachers, they look at the technology. There's a group that will actually sit and read all the curriculums. There's a physical review where they visit each classroom. They make sure that where things are located, all the fire signs are there are no egress problems, class sizes. They look at every element of this district, and it's a thorough and comprehensive review. And then they issue a final report. So the report tonight that we approved was sending our self-rating of CUSAC to the county. Once they get it, then they come out and do their visitation. Then they do a parallel assessment, ranking us for all the scores, and that becomes the final report. So it's like a process. So tonight was the first stage in the process where we welcome the state of New Jersey to come in. And actually, we're rather happy to have the state come in. They've been in numerous times in the past. We invited many of the people in Trenton to come up and take a look. And at this point, we have a very good reputation in Trenton. People who study the scores and the progress are always very complimentary. And we find that when people come here, if they had one attitude when they come, they have a different attitude when they leave. But it's a very comprehensive process, and we always do the best we can to put our best foot forward. And so that's what CUSAC is. They have everything called DPRs and subtests and all these kinds of ratings, but for the general purpose, that's what CUSAC is. It's the test of accountability for a district that's evaluated by the state of New Jersey.
And that component is also available in the New Jersey School Report Card yearly, that's released yearly online for the school districts. And it has all of the information about the district, all the subgroups, all the subcategories, everything. So I hope that answers your question. Very
You
good.
know what, we can piggyback off that for a minute, because the school report card takes the results that you see tonight, and that takes all the data, and then they represent it in a different format. So when you get the school report card, that's aligned with federal standards, which are different than the state standards, and the federal standards exclude students less than a year. So once we get that, that's almost for us a better indication in terms of what of our progress with the students that we had. Last year, we were very proud to welcome, I don't know the exact number, but let's say 240, 250 students brand new to the district, most of whom are new to the country. And we're very proud to welcome these students. We think we do an exceptional job. Next meeting, Mr. Quiones is going to present the test out and achievement rate of our students in our bilingual program, which is another report that we do. We invite you to come so you can hear that, because it's important, and that's where it's good having an audience, so that we can present some of the factors of the school district, so it gives you a better understanding of what's going on and the story behind the numbers. Because when the state publishes a number, you see 19% of the students in the state of New Jersey passing Algebra 1 on PARCC. I don't know about you, but if I were teaching a classroom and only 19% of my kids passed, I would think, maybe there's a problem that I got to address here. And this is a problem going on with PARCC, which is why there are only 6 states left in the PARCC testing. And one other element to explain, the rest of the country uses a passing score of 3, 4, or 5 for the PARCC. In fact, many districts will use 3, 4, or 5 in the slides that they present tonight to say, if you were comparing us with the rest of the country, this is where we would stand. We don't do that. We try to be very transparent. We use the 4 or 5, which is a New Jersey standard, rather than the 3, 4, or 5. And that's partly the reason for some of the scores that we have. But it's a better sign for you of where we stand within the state. Once the disaggregated data comes through, then it will be easy to look and see how we're doing with each of our subgroups. And to us, it's much more valuable information in terms of our achievement. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir. Any other board members, anything?
Yeah, so I have one other thing. I think when we talked about the breakdown of PARCC scores and the further breakdown that was still waiting for, I think one of the audience members misunderstood and asked a question about the kids that were in the district for 6 months, 3 months, whatever, that number would be coming out. That's not the breakdown that we were talking about. We were talking about the breakdown between the factor groups.
Is that correct?
Well, actually disaggregated data is everything. It's time in the district, it's demographic groups.
That will be part of it, all right.
It's all of it. And that for us is really, really valuable, Mr. Scarnio, because then we can compare all our subgroups and how we're doing.
But they haven't given us a time frame for that yet.
No, because if you're a district that has a relatively low ratio of students entering every year, and you're pretty stable, that's going to be a little bit different picture than a district that welcomes many new students all the time. And that's where it gets a little tricky trying to compare district with district in Morris County. But we do that. In fact, one of our reports, and maybe some of you have seen it in the past, that we send home a report that actually has Dover listed with all the other schools in Morris County, so you can see exactly where we stand within those rankings. Sometimes we do well, sometimes we don't, but we put it all out there.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Okay, I'll take a motion to close the meeting.
So second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Very good. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for coming this evening.